Hi there, this is Alan, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search, marketing, and domain investing strategies to help you learn and to grow your business. In today's episode, you'll want to listen all the way to the very end as I discuss and share my own experience in using Geo Service Domains. And so we'll talk about what Geo Service Domains are, whether or not they're good investments, whether you should develop them, flip them, or even lease them. And I'll share with you, like I said, my own Geo Service Domain experience. And then last but not least, I'll walk you through a step-by-step process that I use to gauge whether or not to purchase a Geo Service Domain or even to develop one. And so, like I said, you'll definitely, I'm going to try to pack as much as I can into this podcast. So listen all the way to the end, where I'll share with you free tools that you can use, to develop and establish your own Geo Service Domain strategy. So let's get started. So what are Geo Service Domains? So in my opinion, I basically call Geo Service Domains a subcategory of a higher level category. And that category is geodomains. And so you may or may not be familiar with geodomains. So think in terms of, I classify, and the industry does as well, geodomains as the top tier, kind of the higher end category defining type names. And so some examples of geodomains. So you may have a state geodomain. So something like Texas.com or Florida.com. You may have a region geodomain, something like Silicon Valley.com. So, or it may even go down as far as even like a city. So you may have sites, I know that there are sites out there, so city geodomains, such as BainbridgeIsland.com, Nashville.com, PalmSprings.com, Atlanta.com. They define a very high level, top tier market. And so one of the things is with geodomains, or the difference that I often find is that geodomains are more broad in nature, whereas Geo Service Domains are very hyper niche or local niche, or hyper local focused. They're very targeted. And so whereas geodomains are more media site based. And so you think of things like, I think of geodomains as really Chamber of Commerce websites on steroids. And so, they offer many different, they really offer, I guess you'd say, a good outlet for, news coverage of that specific market. So, in the case of, let's say something like an Atlanta.com or even PalmSprings.com, they're more of a directory focus. They gain and earn most of their income from advertising. And so they want to advertise the local businesses. They want to give you the feel for what it's like to live in that region, state, or city. They bring you the most up-to-date news. And so it's a different look and feel. And so throughout the industry, there have been many that have done well with geodomains. And so I myself, I've not had that experience in terms of dealing with the top tier geodomains, but there are those who out there. I know, for instance, I mentioned Bainbridge Island, and Mike Seiger, he operates that. So, he's likely a good contact, and he operates dnacademy.com. And so he's likely a good contact to figure that out if geodomains are more of your thing. As for today's episode, though, I really want to focus in on just Geo Service Domains. So I deem Geo Service Domains as domains that are really hyper focused. So if you think about industries that are more local focused, so think about like buying a mattress or pet sitting, babysitting, lawn care, you name it, legal services, it runs the gamut. And so oftentimes those types of services are really, in business are local centric. It's not that they can't, expand throughout a region, But in most cases, most of their clientele is going to be local focused, not unless they've built a regional, national, or even a global brand. And so most small businesses tend to be local. So that being said, um, one of the first things that I definitely want to talk about in terms of types of geoservice domains are the city plus keyword or keyword plus city. And so, for instance, like I own roundrockseo.com, and so I use it as a simple redirect. I could develop that domain. I could develop it into mini site or lead gen site, but um, I just choose to basically use it as a redirect to kickstartcommerce.com. Why? Well, one of the reasons that I use it is, because people are typing it in. I mean, yeah, you can say things have increased in mobile, and they have, but the reality is everyone, if you're sitting in front of a desktop, 9 times out of 10 you may type it in. Not only that, I think it's better value to me than in the hands of my competition. So why would I want Round Rock SEO to be into the hands of someone else who specializes in search marketing when I can own that domain and drive whatever little type in traffic or whatnot? Or I could also use it on billboard. And so instead of using Kickstart Commerce, which is a bit long, I could use Round Rock SEO on a billboard that's based in where? Round Rock, Texas. And so you can get away with using things like that. There's also one story that I want to share with you in regards of the city keyword domain is austinmattress.com. And so a couple of years ago, one of my sons, we were transitioning from a crib to a toddler mattress. And so we ventured off to a Austin Discount Mattress was the name of the company. And as soon as we walked in, I looked up on their wall and there was austin-mattress.com. And I literally began salivating, obviously, just because I love domains so much. And so when I questioned the salesperson about, how they came about using that, and he pretty much told the story and said that it was, all the owner's idea, in that the owner, not only did he purchase austin-mattress.com and had been using it, but has also purchased Cedar Park mattress.com, which is a surrounding city to the Austin. So it's like a suburb of Austin. And so they purchased that, and then they began to forward the traffic there, as well as purchasing a few other surrounding cities. And they eventually end up purchasing austinmattress.com without the hyphen. And they've since upgraded to that domain name, as well as upgraded their website to be a WordPress website, so mobile friendly, and are doing quite well. So well that they're actually renovating and likely to reopen in May. So, that's one story in terms of a city plus keyword domain. And I actually wrote about it on my other website, dnadverts.com. And so you can go there, type in Austin Mattress, and read more in depth about that story. Another city dot plus keyword domain, and this is actually an interesting story because I remember seeing years ago, probably 5 years or so ago, there's a company here that coined themselves cedarparkjewelry.com. And they had commercials running. Even during the Super Bowl, they'd run commercials, and they would literally, they did such a good job at advertising cedarparkjewelry.com. Well, they probably I want to say about 6 months or so ago, upgraded from Cedar Park Jewelry to whitestonejewelry.com. And what's interesting about that upgrade is that they still own cedarparkjewelry.com, and they're redirecting it to whitestonejewelry.com. But what's funny is they basically upgraded the name from the city to actually the street that they're on. They're on a main street, which is called Whitestone Boulevard. And it actually so living in Austin, we have dual street names for whatever reason. Most of it is, dates back decades ago. And so, for instance, you'll have Mopac, which is called Mopac Highway 1, 1325. and it all means the same thing. Nevertheless, this is the same situation for Cedar Park Jewelry, now Whitestone Jewelry. They upgraded to whitestonejewelry.com because of the street. So the street that they're on is actually called 1431, but it also has another name called Whitestone Boulevard. And so I think it's interesting that they went from a city down to a street level, which they branded the street as their company brand now, whitestonejewelry.com. And so I thought that was an interesting one to share. There are other types of Geo Service Domains, though. Obviously, you could do county plus keyword or keyword plus county. So we live in Williamson County. And what's interesting is you could have something like WilliamsonACRepair.com to represent, it could represent the city named Williamson. It could also represent a area named Williamson or a county. And so that's one in terms of the county plus keyword and keyword plus county Geo Service Domain. The next is region. And so you could also have region plus keyword or keyword plus region. And so one of the things, and this is interesting because it actually includes a state, but really we have an area here in Austin called Hill Country. And so there's a site that is texashillcountry.com. And so it operates very much almost like a geo domain, except it's region. And so the reality is it could really be hillcountry.com, but most people here refer to it as the Texas Hill Country. And so it's just interesting seeing that a site has been built based upon a region and then keyword. And so the next up is state keywords. And so this is where you can get into state keyword or state keyword phrases. And so, for instance, I own TexasSolarSolutions.com. And so that's a good example in terms of, state keyword. It could also be TexasSolar.com. And vice versa, Solar Texas. And then obviously you could build out to a country level. And there are, sites that I've seen out there that use like shuttersusa.com or USA keyword, or, they may use US, or they may use some sort of country code. Or region, so North America, North American. And so those are far and few in between, although I would say, there are a lot of companies that, at least US-based, that use USA or US as a part of their domain name. You don't see it often, but you do see it. And finally, the last type of geodomain that I want to bring to your attention are really the abbreviated keyword, and then the keyword abbreviation. And so this can go all sorts of ways. So, for instance, here in Austin, Texas, Austin is very populated and it's very competitive in terms of the businesses that spring up here. Oftentimes here in Austin, businesses will use phrases such as Longhorn, Austex, so AUSTEX, in lieu of not being able to, purchase a domain with Austin, whatever their service is. Now, that being said, Austin has become so competitive that now you're starting to see brands pop up with ATX as a part of their brand name, especially if they're like I said, local hyper niche, local focused business. And so it was interesting. I thought it was only happening here in Austin, or not that I didn't realize it was happening elsewhere, but here in Austin, it's ATX. Well, a few weeks ago, we actually ventured out to the Bay Area for one of our friends, their wedding. And it was interesting flying in from Austin to San Jose. And as soon as I got there, it was interesting seeing domains that use the abbreviation SJ for San Jose, even though I would kind of consider San Jose, just in terms of length of characters, I consider it to be quite easy to spell, not that long. But I guess when you append it to a keyword, it could be quite longer. than what you want. And so, for instance, I believe it was the police department. They used like SJ in their domain. I don't even recall it. But then it was even more interesting to venture over to San Francisco. And so San Francisco obviously is quite long to type out. And then you append a keyword to that. And so it was interesting to see that SF was used. So I think it was like an SF port. .org or .com, and then there was like a Golden Gate SF.org or .com, and so it was just interesting seeing the appended or prepended abbreviations for cities attached, and so that opens up a whole new gamut because I really like the abbreviated keyword domains or Geo Service Domains. One, because it really creates an opportunity for branding. And so that's been, my experience of living here in Austin and actually seeing more and more brands start to brand themselves as ATX service or service ATX. And so that has been just an interesting phenomenon that has occurred. In terms of my own experience, though, as for the Geo Service Domains, so about 4 years ago, I saw a domain that was in an expired auction, and I think I ended up purchasing it. It was like closeout price at $5, and I purchased it actually after renewing it another year. It was like $13. And in less than about 3 months, I was able to stand up a 5-page non-WordPress site with content on it, with a phone number, with a contact form, and literally it started ranking in Google and got to page 2 and eventually to page 1. And over that 4-year period, I was able to actually turn that domain, develop the domain, and even though I'm not licensed to do AC work, but I was actually testing out my search marketing chops and seeing, hey, could I get it to rank in Google? And I did. And then the phone started ringing and the emails started arriving because I made it to page 1. And that was just with nothing more than just building a simple 5-page site, no link building, none of that. And what was interesting was I had to go and find a partner. And I kind of stumbled upon this. This was, like I said, this was not my intent, but I wind up stumbling upon the fact that you could then, go to a partner. And so I began to call local AC repair places just using Google, trying to figure out, okay, who's on page 5 that may want these leads. Obviously, they're on page 4 or 5 or more, and they're not getting any leads possibly. So I called a gentleman, and actually, I didn't even call the first time. I actually sent out an email with the list of 5 companies on this email, and they could all see one another. And I said, hey, I have a lead. Whoever responds first gets the lead. First gentleman responded. He got the lead. He fulfilled the lead, and the rest was history. I basically began sending him leads, and the interesting thing was I updated the website to include his contact information. I still kept the form there, but I also CC'd myself on the form as well as CC'd the form. So when someone submitted the form from the website to him, he also got a copy. And then I basically just redirected a Google Voice number over to his direct number. And so, that's how I handled that. Now, like I said, that was not my intent. And so essentially it worked out on an honor system to where he would just send a monthly check based on how much work he did. Now, obviously, I could see the requests coming in. I knew the phone numbers that were calling the number. And so I knew that, all right, A is getting business. So if push came to shove, ultimately I could turn the faucet off in terms of those leads, and that would be that. So needless to say, that didn't happen. But what did happen was this gentleman actually had another website and had participated in some black hat strategies that then he redirected over to my site, unbeknownst to me, and we lost rankings after that. He did it right, almost right at the tail end of that 4 year period that it was ranked. And so, needless to say, because of that, it's going to take a while to get it ranked. Obviously, I got to go back and do things like, bring the style, the look and feel up, update really to a content management system that's mobile friendly, update the content. And so, that's just an example and of me purchasing a domain and haphazardly winding up into an agreement. And then, it went from a percentage, it went from a flat rate, hey, pay this, to a percentage of what he was doing. And the business was seasonal. And so it wasn't until I actually began talking to another AC partner that, this person was like, yeah, we put in these many units in and they cost this much. And I was like, oh man, I'm leaving money on the table in terms of just charging a flat rate per month. And so about halfway through that, I changed the model up a bit and said, okay, hey, I want to go from running a flat rate to a percentage of the business that you do. And that was definitely worth, worth the admission, that I basically discovered, or rather discovered in just an offshoot conversation one day with an AC guy that I just met out and about. And so, that being said, that's been one of my experiences. And truth be told, I mean, you have to really dedicate time to this. It's not just you go buy a domain, you go set up a site and walk away and hope for the best. No, like these days, you really have to devote time, almost as much time as you would devote to a top tier geo service. A geo domain. You need to devote that same amount of time and effort into developing a geo service domain. If you're developing it as a lead gen, obviously, if you're developing it as a brand, then you need to really work to brand it. You need to really work to ensure that there's unique content that's written on this site. If you want it to actually flourish and stay ranked within search engines. And so, that brings us to the point of really asking the question, are geo service domains worth it? Obviously, one of the cons of a geo service domain that you may or may not know or even recall is that in 2012, Google issued what's called an EMD, or an exact match domain, which geo service domains are qualified as that. They introduced an update that basically lessened or penalized those who were out to try to rank or game the system. And so they get these things ranked, and then and here's the thing: they weren't necessarily building them as a brand. They were actually just trying to get them ranked just to get business. And so that's the snafu that you run into in terms of trying to use a geoservice domain nowadays. And so, in my opinion, to really answer the question of are geoservice domains really worth it, you have to consider the pros and cons. But even in considering the pros and cons of what it means to use it, you also really have to decide what your strategy is. Are you out to buy these domains and flip them, and use them as that type of an investment? If you are, my advice to you is don't expect to strike it rich on one name. The name of the game here in terms of geoservice domains is really higher volume, and your sales are likely going to be low to mid three figures. Not unless you really stumble upon like a, city and then a high cost per click keyword. And so that's my advice to most everybody. If you're looking to flip and invest, then you really want to get in low and you really want to sell high. That's the name of the domain game in general, but really with the flipping and investing, it's not one of those things that you're going to want to hold these domain names for like 10 years. Yeah, you could, but then you got to think about the cost to carry the domain plus the whether or not that's going to be enough ROI for you to carry it, that long. And so that's one of the things that you have to think about when you're flipping. When you're developing, it's a total different game. You really must commit to the process in its entirety, as I was stating previously, with Round Rock AC repair, which it's no longer in service, only because these days, between writing, podcasting, and domain investing in and of itself, I really don't have the time to put into it. Although I've actually been thinking about just rehabbing the domain just to see if I can actually get it back to where it once was. And so the jury is still out on whether or not I'm going to do that. But nevertheless, you really must commit to really developing the name, developing a strategy for a geo service domain. And so it's no half stepping. There are no shortcuts here. You really have to put in the work. You're going to have to do the research and ensure that you're doing all the necessary things, keeping the site updated, making sure it's mobile friendly, making sure it has the appropriate SEO structure, even going as far as even enlisting the help of social media profiles that will even back up and prop up that geo service domain. And so there are no shortcuts in terms of development. You will have to put in the time. Last but not least, you could also consider what it means to lease. And that lease falls more in terms of what I was doing with Round Rock AC Repair, in terms of leasing it almost as a lead generation. Whereas the development is more so you want to develop it as your brand, as your company's brand. Leasing is a bit more difficult because in certain instances, you must comply with local guidelines for certain services. So think about electricians, you need to be licensed. Think about, AC or HVAC. You need to be licensed to do those. And in some cases, they require that you put the license on the website. That was one of the things that I ran into with Round Rock AC Repair, is that, I got a call from the regulation office basically stating, hey, we don't show that you have a license. And, ultimately, I had to basically say, well, no, this is actually a website that's leased out to someone who is licensed, and here is their license. And we had to update the website with their appropriate license. If not, then you can run afoul and you will be held responsible for it and not necessarily the business. And so that's one of the things that, if you're going to lease, you're going to have to think about how do you comply and stay in compliance at all times. Else you're going to risk being held liable for something that you may have known or not known. That being said, also, you have to think about your pricing model in terms of a lease. And so do you want to go with a percentage, or do you want to go with flat pricing? In addition, you'll also have to figure out, do you want to escrow that lease, or do you want to go on an honor system? I chose to go on an honor system only because that I didn't set out to get into a lease. Really, I just set out to see if I could rank a site, and lo and behold, I did. And phone calls start coming, and next thing you know, it's kind of like a business in a box that just kind of unrolled, and likely would still be doing so, had I committed the time to update the site, keep it updated, keep it basically in adherence to Google's search guidelines. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that it still would be ranking today. But nevertheless, you have to figure these things out. Obviously going with escrow, you could incur more fees. You're going to also have to figure out, how do you verify that work was completed? And so, for instance, for me, because I could see which numbers called in and which email addresses, then I could follow up a week after, almost really as quality assurance to go, did the company fulfill the job that they said that they would? If not, then I need to find a new partner. If they did, obviously, we keep going. Good news. And so it's those things that you'll have to really think through and through about whether or not it truly makes sense for you to lease a domain. And then, like I said, how you collect payment, is it the honor system, and you hope that they're being honest in terms of sending you monthly payments or weekly payments or however you set it up? Or is it that you go the full official route of escrow and incur those costs of what it means to, um, have an official agreement? And so those are the things that you have to consider when you consider flipping and investing or development as a brand, or even the lease development. So you develop it and then lease it out. Those are things that you have to think about for Geo Service Domains and whether or not they're really worth it. Time is money. And so you really have to think through and through, if I'm going to buy this domain, am I willing to invest in seeing its full potential realized? And if the answer is yes, then you got to be willing, in my opinion, to devote at least 2 years at minimum to projects like this. Only because if they're brand new domains, it's going to take you a while to even gain the clout from search engines. To be even reasonably ranked well as write content in a consistent manner that's deemed valuable by customers as well as search engines. So there's a lot to think about in terms of Geo Service Domains. In my opinion, I think that they are worth it for the right companies if they're focused on the hyperlocal, as well as the right type of investor. If you're more like me, where I have a software development background, then it may make sense. It very well makes sense for you to spend some time looking through your life experience, your professional experience, and go, I actually know a little bit about this, and this is considered a hyper local or a local service, and I might be able to, venture into this and actually, turn it into a profitable business. And so, is it worth it? That's your call. You'll have to figure that out. I will say that, last but not least, is really considering the pros and the cons of Geo Service Domains as you make that call. So everything that I said before, and you have to remember, from a pro standpoint, I go, Geo Service Domains, they work well, especially if you're looking at cities that are that have populations of 75,000 or more. In my opinion, I think the sweet spot is likely somewhere in like 105,000, that area, just because you're below the radar, but you're above it to where there's just enough competition and enough search volume of people searching for different services. Also, I think another pro of a Geo Service Domain is, they're good. Like I said, they're good to brand. And so if you're local focused, they're just a good way for you to brand. It's different than saying, Joe's Lawn Care. Well, what about atxlawncare.com? Joe, you're based in Austin, so why not, go ATX Lawn Care, because people are likely going to search for Austin Lawn Care. And the ATX Lawn Care is going to lend itself to become a brand more than Joe's Lawn Care. That said, you also think about, was it Joe Lawn Care or Lawn Care Services? Which one was it? Or was it ATX Lawn Care? Obviously, you look at that, or even if you shorten it from ATX Lawn Care to ATX Lawns, and you decide to own both the singular and the plural, you build a brand that's easy to remember and easy to spot. How many Joes are there likely in the world? Millions. But from an ATX standpoint, there can likely be a singular brand, one brand that's built around that. And then not only that, if you're fortunate enough to get a city service type of Geo Service Domain, then you're going to capitalize on type-in traffic that you can simply redirect to your brand. And so even if you decide, hey, I don't want to build my brand on a Geo Service Domain, it behooves you to own it, much like the Austin Discount Mattress Company owning austinmattress.com, as well as cedarparkmattress.com and a few other surrounding metro cities in the Austin metro area. So it behooves you to own them, because in the hands of your competition, man, that's a stiff penalty to pay, when the reality is, why not pay, say if it's 5 domains, why not pay $50 to $75 a year to get the traffic, as well as keep your competition from using them against you. I mean, $75 per year, that's a small price to pay. And the upside is way greater in terms of you redirecting traffic to your brand as well as gaining type in traffic. I mean, $75, what other option could you get that's going to offer as much ROI as a Geo Service domain? I mean, $75 for a PPC ad, it'll be gone within an hour, topped. You know, are you going to get a TV ad for that? No. A radio ad for that? No. A billboard for that? No. And so to that extent, you know, like I said, you want to capitalize on the type in traffic or redirection of Geo Service domains, especially if your business is hyper local or locally focused. In terms of the cons, like I said, Google, that 2012 EMD update, I mean, it did no favors for anybody. And so likely is the case, you know, the people who weren't well invested for long term, they let their domains go. I still search on a daily basis and I run across high competition, high cost per click Geo Service domains in the AC repair market. And you know, I can hold those domains. I can lease the traffic out on those domains. I can develop those domains. I can do a host of things with those domains. But for me, it's a matter of if I'm going to do it, not if I'm going to say that I'm going to do it, that I'm going to actually execute on doing it. And so that's one of the cons that you have to consider, is that they don't rank as well as they used to rank, and that it's going to take a bit more elbow grease and consistency and commitment to see them through. Another side effect of this is like I go back to the competition statement. It's easy for your competition to copy should you not defensively register brand in variable Geo Service domains. So let's say you brand something like you purchase Austin Mattress, but then you don't purchase Mattress Austin. And so you got to think from a defensive standpoint. And here's where the argument can be had. Well, if I do that, and if I do that for surrounding cities, then what may happen? Well, obviously what may happen is you're going to have an expensive bill because I say that you have 10 cities. Well, that's 20 domains if you do the inverse of city and keyword. You know, it'll be 20 total domains, still a nominal cost. But that being said, let's say you have businesses in multiple cities. Well, there you go. Now you can see how it can start adding up. But you still have to do the math and go, is what I'm investing, is the ROI, you know, greater than what it's going to cost me to run billboards and the like for that same advertisement? So that being said, you know, they can become quite expensive, but you have to compare it to the ROI. Not only that, the last thing that it leads to is, like I said, because it's easy for competition to see it and then begin to copycat. For instance, there is and I've seen it here in Austin. It was a Austin CPA, and then up pops Austin, Texas CPA. Then up popped CPA Austin, Texas. And all these variations, and they're owned by different companies. And so now you get brand confusion in the mix, you know, all because you didn't take the moment or time to defensively register a Geo Service domain. And so that's just one of the things that you must consider. Those are some of the pros, some of the cons that you must consider when making that investment into Geo Service domains, whether you choose to flip them, develop them, or even lease them. And so with that, that's my overview of Geo Service domains. And I thank you for listening. And I have not forgotten. I made a promise to give you insight on a Geo Service tool and my process. And so if you're thinking about investing, flipping, developing, or leasing Geo Service domains, then I would like to invite you to visit localdomainseo.com and to download a Geo Service or local domain cheat sheet for free. As well as on that same site, you're able to purchase a copy of my step-by-step process for selecting and optimizing local domains names for local SEO. That being said, in addition, just below this podcast, I've included, basically in the description of the podcast and then as well as below it on kickstartcommerce.com, I've included two additional resources, and both of these resources are free to assist your efforts in learning more about Geo Service Domains. And the first is a PDF guide that I put together called How to Develop and Flip Geo Service and Keyword Domains. I also created a 20-minute video where I actually walk you through step by step the process in which oftentimes I use for certain domains that I want to flip or do a quick flip on. And so I walk you through my process of how I send emails, how I leave voicemails, how I set everything up to be purchased. And so those are two free resources that'll help you and assist you in your efforts to learn more about Geo Service Domains. I hope this has been informational for you. I hope it's giving you some insight. If you do have questions or comments, please don't hesitate to drop me an email at info@kickstartcommerce.com or leave a message below this podcast. And so with that, we're out of time. Like I said, thank you for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help you grow your business. Last but not least, also please subscribe to this podcast, whether that's via Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, or via Podbean. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the weekly newsletter by visiting kickstartcommerce.com. Thanks, and that's all for now.